a little bit. Hey guys, welcome back. Today, we're going to be showing you how to make a carrier for your pliers. Now your pliers, your basic pliers here, is I believe to be one of your most versatile tools that you could possibly get to be able to carry every day. And you can use pliers for a hammer, as a pry bar, to hold nuts or bolts as you tighten it up with the other end. And you'd also be able to use it for a variety of other things that you may not have the right tool right off the bat or right at hand. And I've been carrying these pliers, not this particular set, for many, many years. And I have went through multiple leather carriers over the last 15 years or so, and I got tired of constantly going through these cheaper leather carriers that you would get from your stores, such as Orscheln's, or from other farming type or tool type stores. And so I had gotten to the point to where whenever I started doing leather work, I wound up designing my own, taking all the flaws that I found with the original setup from those stores and making my own design. As you can see here, I wound up putting a wear toe on the bottom. This strap here, you can use this for a variety of different things. Small tape measures, crescent wrenches, other things of that sort. I also did a full width double stitch on the top for the belt loop. This toe is replaceable. You can actually go ahead, if this winds up wearing through, you can pull the stitch and pull this here, pull that toe off, replicate it, and stitch it back on. Same way with this here. With these store-bought ones, these loops only have, a good portion of them, only have one rivet in the back. And I've broke, I don't know how many times of those rivets and wound up having to get a new one or just simply replace that rivet. I have not had an issue with this full width stitch across the top. I've also down here with, of course, the wear toe, I don't know how many times from being underneath tractors or trucks or any other thing where I'm on the ground and on my side on concrete or asphalt, where this toe constantly wears off and wound up poking my pliers through the toe, and it would wind up causing issues. Now this particular style, I tried to keep as narrow of a design as possible. That way it doesn't interfere too much with other things. And I do a full treatment of the wax and boiled linseed oil, and it provides a waterproof, for the most part, barrier to the products, to the leather products. Now I want to go ahead and show you guys the process of making one of these. All right, so I got a bunch of templates here I want to end up using. This one here is for the toe. This one here is for the main cover, the main wrap that will go around the pliers. And this is the backer. Now I also have a wet form block that I made. And it is very, very close to the standard size of pliers. I got it set up to where it'll sit just outside the front cover after I wet form it. I do have lines here marked on the face of this. That way I know where I need to stop with the cover and still be able to have enough material down here at the toe and still be able to form it out and run with the stitch and everything. So this set here, it's a 4-piece set. This set here I made so I can make multiples of these. I do these up for the farmer's market. So this is the set I said. I end up making 3 carriers, because I gotta get restocked on some, because I sold a bunch of this. I shouldn't say a bunch. I sold some this winter, so I need to get caught back up. So let's go ahead and get down there. Since my workbench isn't big enough, I gotta cut these on the floor. So let's get down there. Alright, so the little loops I put across the top there, across the face, I generally make them about 3/4 of an inch wide, and I usually just make it long enough to just form it around that way, and then just cut the excess off. That way I know I have extra. I won't, of course, won't do it now, but whenever I go to form it and let it dry, that's when I'll cut the excess off. So I need to go ahead and make some more of these and move on to the wet forming. I use warm water and let it sit there and soak for a little bit on both the front and the back. That way it soaks in real well and makes it a little bit more pliable. And I also take a spoon and use it to kind of crease my lines and kind of work the edges a little bit. It makes for a kind of a crude look, but this like down here around the toe, I'm not really going to worry about it too much, because it's going to be covered, so I'm not terribly worried about the way that this toe's going to look. But once you get up past where that toe's going to be, I always try to do a smooth transition there. The toe, this one's going to be a little bit easier to do. I find a spoon is easier to work with to make these turns and everything than just simply trying to use your fingers. Usually, of course, there's going to be better ways of doing this, such as a press, but starting out, it doesn't. I just don't have the money to be able to go and just simply buy a press. Now this tab, this deal I put across the top, I drop it about 3/4 of an inch or so from the top, so that way it has plenty of room and you won't really interfere too much with sliding it in and through the top. It won't interfere with where the pliers are. Now at this point, I usually try to go ahead and trim off the excess, because I already know about how much room I need for threading. That's usually about 1/4 inch or so, give or take a little bit, and that allows plenty of room for threading. And I usually start with the toe and work from there, because I try to get the primary cover matched up at the seams, as you can see here where it meets the toe, and then just kind of shape it from there. That way it doesn't look strange getting it set up onto the backer and make it look strange in a sense of odd shapes. Now this type of glue that I use, the Gorilla Clear glue, it has a water activation, so having a little bit of water on your piece actually kind of helps activate it. It allows for, it just kind of really helps. Now you don't want to glue the back onto the main primary cover. You still have to run a stitch across the top on the toe. I still put glue on this, yes, but that's just for a little bit extra securement and help with potential issues of it wanting to separate. So it will be a pain to have to come back and replace it, but it does help quite a bit whenever from separating. That's the gist of this. So let this dry overnight. Now the stitching across the top of the toe. I try to do a double stitch just for the sake of it. And here in a sec you'll see the crossover of the stitching on the back. Crossover stitching is to help with room on the inside of the carrier, so that it allows for easier push in and pull out. So this little bit, I had to leave a tail on the inside. That way I can use it to sort of as a pressure point and be able to lock my threading. Whenever I do this, I go to a crossover and on the inside only, and sort of helps keep it flat instead of doing the single stitch of 2 needles. This just allows for ease of stitching instead of having to fight multiple needles and the vise and possibly deforming your part. This allows you to hold your part. As you can see, as you're going through here, feed it through the front and then go up on the back side, on the inside, what would be the inside. Go up, keeping it tight, go to your next hole, and run it through, and then go back to one on the lower level. Go back and down. Now on your tail, make sure you leave enough of your tail so that you can rather easily cut it off and then be able to melt it or do whatever. Keep it from fraying. That way the stitching stays together better, longer. You don't have to worry about it coming apart. so I hated truing up these edges, like what you see here, truing these up, because I used to have to do these by hand instead of running a drill, and I wasn't actually able to run this unless I use my belt sander out in the shop until I got this, and I've had this for a while, and it has helped me out tremendously between this and drilling. So if you can get one of these cheapo ones, that would be freaking awesome. It'd be very, very helpful. This just so happens to be an old model of a drill press. Now the upside is it takes a heck of a lot less time to true up the edges with this than it does by hand. But the downhill side, as you can see, it creates a mess, a terrible mess. So you'll have to be sure to make to clean up and everything. All right, so this is a Craftsman model number 335.25926. Man, this thing has done me very well over the last few years I've had this. So if you can, keep an eye out for something like this, or go ahead and get a small drill press from, say, Harbor Freight. That will do just as well. It might, except those, you can't turn over on its side like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get cleaned up and get started on drilling these holes out. So I did end up trimming these edges here with this tool. I can't remember what the heck this is called. For this particular set, it's a number 3 from the Crafts tool. It is it's not a splitter, it's a trimmer, I think is what it's called, edge trimmer. It takes the burr off of these edges after you true them up on a sander. Makes it look a little bit cleaner. We are now on to stitching. My method of this is really different for these anyway, compared to a lot of other ways of doing it typically, because it's just I've got a lot of faith in this method. And feed it through, have it doubled over, feed it through from the back side of your product and weave it through, and then feed it back into itself like that. Now, if you've been watching been on the channel much, you would have probably seen this method used along with others. I do more than just this one because of the circumstance and what I may be stitching. Sometimes I'll just simply do a single stitch and run it through. Sometimes I'll do it this way. It just depends on the circumstance of what's being done. This here I have found to be a very, very strong stitch. I don't really have that much issue with it. The only thing that I've had issues with is that it knots onto itself, but it's like those feed bags. If you undo one portion of the knot of the string, it all comes out. That is the downhill side of this. This threading here has worked very well under the circumstance that it seems to be abrasive friendly. It's able to take a little bit of abuse. This trot line that I use, and yes, I know it's trot line, but it works. If you do wind up seeing frays, what you can do if you catch it in time is that you can take a lighter and melt it and make sure you push in on itself onto the thread, and that will also help hold it. This treatment that I do, I've spoken about this several times in the past, but I'll do it again, is a simple concoction of wax, candle wax, and boiled linseed oil. And the concoction is anything from a 4-to-1 to a 6-to-1 ratio. The greater being the candle wax, the smaller part being linseed oil. And the general concoction that I use is somewhere around the 5-to-1 mark. It's not exact anymore, I just eyeball it. I do have my big set for whenever I do longer pieces. It's set up in I think it was a 8x11 or something like that, 7x11 pan. Well, I'm wanting something a little bit smaller so I can just do smaller pieces like the Pliers carriers. And that's where this aluminum pot's coming into play. I'm going to go ahead and run my concoction here and get some more candle wax in there along with the linseed oil, and go ahead and get a new set going. That way I can use it for smaller stuff. All right, so it might be a little rich in wax, but oh well. See how this steam is just now coming off of here? That's where you want to look for right whenever you start dipping your stuff in there. You don't want it boiling hot. You don't want it terribly hot. You just want it enough to where the steam starts coming off. Now you don't want the stuff in there for too terribly long, only about 10 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. But I kind of more or less eyeball this and make sure you get it fully submerged. And try to keep it off the bottom because it will try to warp your stuff, and you gotta be careful with your threading because it will try to burn that off too, or melt it more or less. What I do is I kind of slosh it around a little bit and pour it out, make sure everything is pretty well soaked. I've had it too many times where I've had it just sitting in there for that 10 or 15 seconds and just caused too many issues. So I don't hold it completely soaked, it's completely submerged, because it'll still soak in properly, even with, because the way I was told is that you have to keep it in there until you start seeing it boiling. Doing it this way still accomplishes it, but it's a little bit safer method. Doing it this way, you won't really have to worry about where you have your clamp, because it'll still soak in. So, well, your dipping material, or dipping utensil, I mean. All right. Now see, this is a perfect example. See how the little white bubbles on there? That's what you want to look for, because that's what it's soaking in there. Like I say, you don't want to have it in there for too long, or it will start warping the leather. Trust me, I know. So go ahead and wrap this up. That's the treatment. As you can tell, it does darken it up pretty good. Gives it that nice darker look to it. And just a quick tip on this, it does make this more pliable, so if you need to do some last second adjustments, last second forming, now right afterwards would be a good time to go ahead and do that. Just an FYI. So that is the way that I do the Pliers carrier. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want to check out my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, that will be linked in the description below. And I do a bunch of various deals on there, and I also do some of those videos that I make for there, make it to YouTube Shorts, and I throw up some other videos smaller videos on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. So if you want to check those out, you can. Not all of them make it here on YouTube, but oh well. So if you want to check those out, you guys can jump over there. Now, a video verse today is in Hebrews chapter 7, and we're finishing up the chapter. We're doing verses 20 through 28. And it says, "None of this happened without an oath, for others became priests without an oath. But he became a priest with an oath made by the one who said to him, 'The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever.' Because of this oath, Jesus has also become the guarantee of a better covenant. Now many have become Levitical priests, since they are prevented by death from remaining in office. But because he remains forever, he holds his priesthood permanently. Therefore, he is able to save completely those who come to God through him, since he always lives and to intercede for them. For this is the kind of high priest we need, holy, innocent, undefiled, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens. He doesn't need to offer sacrifices every day, as high priests do, first for their own sins, then for those of the people. He did this once for all time when he offered himself. For the law appoints as high priests men who are weak, but the promise of the oath, which came after the law, appoints a son who has been perfected forever." And that is Hebrews chapter 7, verses 20 through 28. And I hope to see you guys in the next one.